like that title. Well, good morning.
Good morning.
So, I have much to share with you, but I always stand up here and go, okay, Spirit, it's yours. Every time I would enter a room as a chaplain, as I entered that doorway, I would say, this is yours, God. I drop and let go of any agenda, of any block of thought. I open this room to you, whether it's accepted or not. And I've been that way since I was a small child. I started out as a child in Christian Science. And then after having some bouts with Jesus, I then became a part of religious science. And you've heard the rest of it from there. Every morning, I live in Albuquerque right next to the Nature Center, for those of you who know where that is. And there's over 400 miles of trail to walk. So I walk every morning, anywhere from 5 to 6 miles. And that walk is me and Spirit. And in my evolution, I now refer to God, Yahweh, Jehovah. All of the names of God have become one to me, and that is the name Spirit. And I'm spending more and more time looking at ways to weave all the concepts together. A little science out here, a little consciousness here, a little belief and God here, and all the different cubby holes that we have for all of this. And I'm now looking for ways to sit down and weave them together, because I believe that's our next step. It is so apparent to me as I look out on the world and see people going in so many directions and coming up with things that are not happy, that what we need to do is to draw back together. And I may be ahead of my time, I don't know, but I know that this is a groundswell, even among ministers. When I talk to other ministers, and I've talked to other ministers of other denominations for the last 35 years, because that's what I do. I want to know what people think about God. When I was a teenager, I used to walk to school and home, and I would say to people, if they stopped to talk to me, what do you believe about God? So I could hear, I want to feel the heartbeat of what is important to people. And you may not call it God, and you may call it something else. It doesn't matter. There is a power. This room is filled with energy. This room is filled with energy that you use and take to create in your life. Do you know how exciting that is? Do you know how exciting it is to tell people you can do that? How many people use all of these principles that we teach that are pertinent to there is a power for good and you can use it, which is what Ernest Holmes started with. I often give my hat off to Ernest Holmes because Ernest Holmes did his research. But that was in the 20s. That was in, the days way back there when physicists weren't talking about how we all do it together. And, there wasn't all this concept. He already knew that we do it together. We do it together individually. So every morning I go out, and when I go for my walk, I walk out, it's still dark. People say to me, you go walking in the dark? You ask somebody who's been a minister and a chaplain for 35 years if they walk in the dark. Yeah, on occasion I just do that. I trip into that room and sit down next to somebody and say, so what do you want to talk about? And they might talk about the dark. They might talk about the things that they've done that they don't like. They might talk about how afraid they are. Are you afraid to walk in the dark? No, I'm not afraid to walk in the dark. Because that is part of what I do. So I go out and I walk next to the field, and when I know I can do this, I turn around and I look at the moon and I look at the morning star and I say, good morning. And then I just open my entire self and stand there, just open to alignment with the universe. Bonnie reminded me there's another alignment I need to pay attention to. So, that's how I start my day. And the next way I start my day is because I'm out there walking in the fields and on the bike trail and all these different places, I run into animals. I run into bunny rabbits, I run into coyotes, and everybody is my friend. You know, there's something about dogs and coyotes and animals that have tails, that if you wave at them, they will stop what they're doing and watch you. Because it's not a get away, it's a wave. It's like, wag your tail, I'll wag my hand. I talk to them all. I've walked with the muskrats as they're going along the water ditch. I've talked to the porcupines. The other day I watched an old raccoon come wandering across my path, climb up the chain link fence, over the chain link fence, and back down again to get into the nature center. Never gave me pause. Never checked to see if I was okay to walk in front. Never did any of that. And that comes from the energy that I give, which is everything in front of me is acceptable. If you're an animal, if you're a wave of energy, this is all acceptable. We're all one. We're one. We are one with everything. And I not only believe that, I live it. One of my favorite things in the textbook that Ernest Holmes wrote, it's called Final Conclusion. In conclusion, what the world needs is spiritual conviction, followed by spiritual experience. And that, of course, is called practice, practice, practice. I would rather see a student of this science prove its principle than to have him repeat all the words of wisdom that have ever been uttered. It is far easier to teach the truth than it is to practice it. So your challenge this week is to take one little principle. It can be the principle of love. It can be the principle of oneness. It can be a principle of truth. Can I, as a human being, go through this week and only tell the truth? Oops. I'm not even sure that's politically correct. But can I tell the truth? Of course I can tell the truth. I don't have to be blunt about it. I mean, I sat here, so you get to hear me brag about you again. We sat here and listened to Bonny talk about a mutual friend of ours. And when she got to a certain part, she said, and now I'm going to talk about the elephant in the room. And it was done with such love and such balance that I don't think anybody could have ever been offended by it. And I know a lot of ministers who will not go there. They won't go to that reality of truth. But in order for us to balance and feel like we're one with everything, we have to keep some basic reality going in our lives, don't we? Haven't you found that to be true? I have. I think that there are ways that I can speak that make sense, and there's ways that I can speak that don't make any sense. And the ones that don't make any sense are not follow through on what I really believe. Because the minute I offer something to you and it's not true, you know. You may never say a word, but you know. And I, in the place that I'm in, know you know. Because I've been doing nothing but listening to people talk to me. I've been listening to people tell me their pain. I've been listening to people tell me their joy. All these years. Of course, to me, I have to say, for our musicians in the room, that music, of course, speaks to me in ways that nothing else does. And I know that's probably true for you as well. I'm a jazz person. I've been listening to it since I was 16 years old. Because I lived in LA, I got to go see the famous, the great, listen to all the sounds, know what I was listening to. And to know that it's a science all on its own. It's just another one of those wonderful sciences that we have. I want to quote something to you by a man who I consider transcendental. And I have my own reasons for believing that, and you may have your reasons for believing what you believe about this man, but this is the quote. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek. Does anybody know who said that? President Barack Obama. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change we seek. So I'd like you to think of something you'd like to change this week. And you can remember making changes in your life. I mean, even a 4-year-old remembers doing changes in their lives and what the response was to it. So when I told people I was going to be a minister, and at that point I was leading this really happy LA social life, I started telling people I was going to study for the ministry. Do you want to talk about change? Whoa, did I get some interesting reactions to that statement. You say minister, you say reverend, you say pastor, whatever, and everybody automatically sort of mentally aligns with, oh, this person probably lives a different life than I do. Or, I'm not sure I should even be talking to this person. And there was sort of this movement, this shift that happened. And while it happened and I watched it for them, it happened for me because it had already started. I already made that statement. Sometimes you make changes in your life and you don't say anything until you've made the change. We're talking about my favorite minister, the minister of my heart, Reverend Dr. Homer Johnson in South Central Los Angeles, who would say to me, now, Bonnie, don't talk about anything till you're finished with it. It was probably one of the greatest pieces of advice I've ever had. And it was very easy to simply do. You don't talk till you're ready to talk. You're not ready to share this, don't share it. You have a private, personal, inside person of yourself. You don't have to share that with anybody. Remember when we went through the days of sharing everything? And all you had to do was say, hi, how are you? And you got the whole barn load. It's like, no, I don't think I want to do that anymore. I don't even think I want to listen to it anymore. So every time you change your mind or focus on something, your choice, you focus on something new or choose to elevate your thinking, everything shifts from inside to out there. Because your mind is the hologram. Everything is coming from in here to out there. It's like your vision, Shakespeare said, It's a play, and we'll all take different roles. It's your role, it's your play. You are focusing it out there. And one of the things that's going to happen to you is change. And how do you put it together to do that change for yourself? This is your choice. So recently, well, let's see, I retired from hospice when I was 70. That was 7 years ago. 70 years ago. That was 7 years ago. And I just retired. Part of me was not ready to retire, obviously. And so I have been doing this little exercise that I will share with you. When you want to do a change, you peel the onion. And you're the onion. So I started peeling the onion. I cut the ends. And I started with the first layer, and I peeled the first layer off. Guess what the first layer was? Reverend. Dropped it. Started peeling the second layer off. What was it? Chaplain. The third layer was practitioner. And I got to the fourth layer, which was teacher, and it wouldn't peel. Now, am I listening to Spirit or not? I was listening. So then my next thing, and this is a 6-month sabbatical, so I started this back in May, so you understand that I am allowing the process to work in my life. I am allowing myself to hear what Spirit has to say to me for 2 hours while I'm walking in the early morning, watching the sun come up, watching the mountains turn colors, watching the beauty of the day, and doing something so simple as communicating and blessing the animals and the people and their dogs that I see along my way. I'm not out there to talk to people, although people stop and talk to me. Hi. Their dogs usually are very sort of eager to get to know me for some strange reason, dogs like me. And so there's always, I can't understand my dog. He never acts like that around people. And I just smile. Oh, well, he knows he's one, or whoever. So in this change, I have been willing to say to God, take it away. Let's peel this onion. Now, you can do it with one simple thing. Let's say you're changing your diet. So the onion you're going to peel is the old diet. Throw it out. Okay. And then replace it with the new. Replace it with the new. What do you want to replace it with? When I became a diabetic, guess what I replaced my food with? No sugar, no more of those wonderful cakes and pies, no more half a gallon of ice cream in a sitting. You have to be willing to be in alignment with this. You have to say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I'm now willing to do what it takes to do it. So you peel one piece of the onion off and you throw that away. Don't do what I'm doing, because I've had years of experience at this, so I'm pretty clear about what I can and can't do. And I would never start anybody on a path that said, drop it all at once, unless, of course, that happens to be the path you're on, and then, you do what you need to do. So a little piece, but you're going to replace it. You're going to replace it. It doesn't just go away. You're going to replace it with the thing you want to replace it with. Now, if I asked you right now, what would that be? Do you know? How many people here know what they would do with that? Okay, a few. What a transcendent way to live your life. You are always growing. You are always transcending. It doesn't matter whether you go home and find a letter from somebody you don't want to hear from. Doesn't matter. Whatever is going on, the change is always happening. And sometimes it seems to accelerate. So you peel the onion and you replace what you've peeled away. And you accept. So I didn't get mad at Spirit because the teaching didn't go away. I didn't get mad at Spirit about that. I just said, okay, I'm listening. What is it? And the information is beginning to come. And it's good information. It's something that I can do, something that I can say about what I'm doing, because as long as I'm here, there's going to be something that I physically and mentally am going to do. Because when I'm gone from this shell of a body, I'll just be out there doing whatever I'm doing out there. But right now, it's confined to here I am, use me. Use me. And I will listen. I will do this fearlessly. I will do this, and if I need help, I'll ask. Do I need to talk to somebody? Do I need to talk to a therapist? Do I need to talk to a pastor, a minister? Do I need to talk to a practitioner? What is it I need to do if I find myself in lockdown? You know, when you get into too much fear, you just lock. So if I find myself there are people here to assist you. All you have to do is ask. It's not hard. But it is hard for some of us. How many people here have trouble asking for help? Excuse me while I raise my hand. I want you to be able to ask for help. Because you are coming home to who you are. You are coming home to who you are. In the last little bit I want to talk to you about is a story that I'm going to share with you about transcendence. When I was at UCLA Medical Center, I had floors, rooms, mostly floors to start with, and then all the rooms on that floor. And one day I came across a beautiful young lady, and I mean young, she was in her like 27, 28 years old. Tall, slender, lovely to look at. She was wearing Indian bangle bracelets and an Indian sari shawl around her shoulders. And she had her face all made up and she was ready for the day. And I walked in and told her who I was, and she said, "Oh, I'm so glad. Will you come to visit me regularly?" And I said, "Yes, I will." And I said, "So talk to me. What kind of a day is it today? How are you feeling?" And I'm looking at her, and I'm not shying away from what she has to say. And she felt it, and she began to talk. "I'm dying of uterine cancer." And I squeezed her hand. Then I said, "I'm here to be with you." And she started crying, and she said, "You see all this beautiful, shawl and bracelets?" I said, "Yes, I do." She said, "Well, I just returned from India about 6 months ago." And I said, "Well, how was the trip?" She said, "The trip was the joy of my life." And I said, "Well, how wonderful. Tell me about it." So she began to tell me about the transformation that she had seen there for herself. And I said, "That sounds wonderful." And then she goes, "And then I came home." And I said, "And what happened when you got home?" She said, "I told my family about this wonderful thing that had happened to me. and how wonderful it was. And she said, they told me I was a sinner. They told me that I was evil. They told me that I couldn't believe something from another nation. And why would I ever leave my fundamental religion to encompass that, to take that into my being? And in the long run, she said to me, they crushed the beauty of my vision, for that was where I was going. And she couldn't get past it. She could not get past it. She kept thinking that that family, some part of her was thinking that the family were ruling and controlling her. Now, if that was you, how would you change it? How would you change it? It's a very simple process. Her decision on how she was going to change it was to leave, so she could move into her vision. And when I realized what the subjective was behind what I was seeing, which is a very difficult thing to see. She's young, she has everything in front of her. She could change it now. She chose another way. And when I realized what she was doing with this vision of hers, I then moved to support her in talking to her about her truth. Who was she? She was a child of God. She was a beautiful emanation of spirit. Her vision had value. She could not let go of the sinner. She could not let go. This was her upbringing. That she made this choice and it wasn't okay with her family. So I would keep going back to the part of her that it was okay with, and we would talk about that part. And I have no idea to this day whether it ever made a difference. I have no idea. But if we support each other in our visions, then we get out of the way and let that person in spirit do what they need to do. And we don't call it bad. We are one. Not just with you guys here. I am one with this building. I am one with this city. I am one with this planet. When people come and tell me all the mistakes I make, I ask them to go back and talk to me about all the mistakes they didn't make. Let's talk about your success. Let's talk about your vision. Let's talk about who you are. Let's peel that onion down to the very reality of who you are. And I couldn't do anything more than support you in that. And there's lots of people who would support you in that. There are people that specialize in being there for drama, for accidents, for trauma. There are people who specialize in it. You know, if you have an accident, the ambulance comes and they're all working, and you go into the hospital, and you can go into the hospital anytime you want, any time of the day or night, and they're going to be there for you. How many people in your life are there to support you? I want you to focus on that. I want you to focus on the change that you feel you'd like to make, and I don't care how small it is, and I don't care how big it is. Because Spirit doesn't know how big or little it is. Spirit only knows it's from you. And Spirit is there to support us. Practice the acceptance of what is true so that you can come home to yourself. Does that make sense? You all look dazed. Hello? I'm going to stop for a minute because we have some new people and I have a few minutes to do this. Is there anybody out there that has questions that you'd like to ask? It's the first time you've ever heard a religious science message, or the first time you've ever heard anybody talk like this? Does anybody have any questions? Yes?
So how do you know when you get to yourself?
You know, you feel it right.
Repeat the question.
Okay. She asked, how do you know when you get to yourself? That's a great question. Thank you. I knew because I couldn't peel any more of the onion off. And because it felt here in my heart right. It doesn't mean, you know, I don't have a relationship with God where I just never question. God and I have done our rounds. You know, there's times when I've come home and closed the door and went, ah. And then I calm down, and then I turn it back over to Spirit, and then I say, okay, you ask, is this right? When I'm down to myself, you know, I say, this feels right, Spirit. Is it right? I have an understanding with Spirit that things that are right in my life, I hear about 3 times from someone else. I hear somebody will come and say, oh, by the way, it's happened a lot in my life. And so I know it works for me. What works for you? And then you'll know. I mean, when you feel it here, and you're walking around saying, okay, I'm questioning this, but your response you're getting is from the universe is positive. Does that help? Okay. Anybody else? Aw, come on. Don't be shy. I know if you go out and talk about this, you won't be shy about it. Well, I'm going to close with a prayer and blessings. Oh, look at that baby. Ooh, another blessing. I'm going to ask the practitioners to come with me, stand around the room, so we can know that we're all in alignment with each other. Here in my heart, here in the perfect balance with Spirit, here, Spirit, I stand with you. There is no separation. Only the one supporting, nurturing, sustaining energy of life everywhere. And we take this moment in our conversation with you to know this truth. There is only one. So I know that as we go through this week, the steps before us, the path is clear. The truth is apparent. Our guidance and direction is made plain. We walk a walk that is in truth, and we walk a walk that is prepared for any change that comes to us. We are prepared. We are the gift to ourselves. We are the one we are seeking. And the changes that come from that seeking are ours, and they're loving, and they're kind, and they're gentle. They are only the highest good for us. It cannot be anything else. They are only the highest good. Not only for ourselves, as we recognize and acknowledge this, but for everyone we know. And as we walk through this week, we are in a place of gratitude. Thank you, God. Thank you, Spirit. Thank you, whoever shows up. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And knowing that these words are heard and responded to, I simply release it and I let it go. For I know it is done. From the tip of my toes to the top of my head, all is well. And I claim, and so it is.